Hey, I'm Pops. I'm going to talk to you about the new Hellraiser film, which we're going to nickname Hellraiser 2022. That is the best way to designate it. It carries the same name. That's what we do in reboots now. We just use the same name over again instead of trying to come up with a nice, clever way. But give you my thoughts on it. It laid on Hulu. I'm a little behind on getting this posted. And it's been interesting just trying to gel on it as I had more time to sort of think about it. It kind of give you my thoughts. I was able to get through Hellraiser, the original film in 1987, and the sequel, Hellbound, Hellraiser 2 in 1988. And I haven't proceeded and watched the other ones, so keep that in mind. I would like to rewatch them all to kind of have some better context with what they've done with the Hellraiser universe, because many of these films I have not seen in many, many years. And I think I give my thoughts on the first film especially. The second film, I kind of gave a whole sort of like just a quick thought, not really a review. This is a little bit more in depth into going to that. And spoiler alerts for those of you who still want to watch it, haven't seen it, and that kind of thing. So this will be a little bit more in depth and give you my thoughts on what I think works, what doesn't work, my overall thoughts, that kind of thing. So there you go. So yeah, Clive Barker's Hellraiser live on and have hopefully more films, and hopefully they'll make some changes from this one. I think that fans will be very divided on it. I think there's a lot of fans who are not sort of like invested in the original franchise, especially because the special effects and some of those things were very cheesy, a lot of prosthetics, the computer graphics and stuff were put in on the cheap. They only had like $1 million for that very first film. So it really is freaking incredible what they were able to accomplish back in the 80s. But when you fast forward, obviously, we have incredible CGI effects and things like that. I don't think this has an exorbitant amount of budget. The cast is a whole bunch of nobodies. I really don't know anyone. I'm sure some people do. I'm not really familiar with them. So, all right. So long story short, let's get right to it. There we go. So Hellraiser kicks off with a little intro scene with a guy named Joey. Joey connects to this rich guy, and his name is Voight. And Voight, it's got the puzzle box, and we have the puzzle box. And when it solves the puzzles a certain way, we saw this in the trailer, right? The blade pops out, it stabs him, he's bleeding. There's a little line about, do I get a prize? And Voight's like, no, I do. And basically, it's an introduction, because then we jump ahead about 6 years, and you end up with basically you have a roommate situation. You have a brother and a sister. Her name is Riley. She's the main character. She's a drug addict. Obviously struggling with alcohol. She's got a boyfriend named Trevor. Riley's brother, he's gay, has a boyfriend. And then they have another roommate, I guess, named Nora. So there's 5. So we got the Scooby-Doo gang thing going on here. They're basically just a bunch of interchangeable young people checking a few boxes here and there with the gay kid, and she's a drug addict and drunk, and there's all these little things that happen. And Trevor comes with this idea they're going to break into this warehouse, which he believes has been abandoned by someone that's very wealthy. They break in, pop open this safe, and all they do find is the puzzle box. And then Riley ultimately, on one of her binges, because she's gotten into fights with Matt, it's just all the awful human stuff. And she opens the box, the Cenobites arrive, and she doesn't get cut. So when it pops out, it misses her hand. So she doesn't get cut. But when Matt finds her, the brother goes out, he actually is the one that cuts his hand on it. So therefore the puzzle moves around on its own, and it's Matt who's the one that is the Cenobites are coming after. So there's a cutaway where we get to see them having sex again, or they try to have, it's just she has visions of the Cenobites. Riley is a mess. She doesn't know what is her drug hallucinations and what's not, what she's really seeing, what she's not. They basically try to Scooby-Doo their way to who owned the warehouse where they found the puzzle box, and they find this lady named Serena. Serena turns out to have been, I think, a lawyer to Voight, the rich guy. They're connected. She knows about the puzzle box. She knows about some of the freaky stuff that Voight's into. And basically, the Cenobites come after her because she gets cut on the puzzle, but they come out with a way to figure out where the mansion is to go find Voight, and that's what they go do. The remainder of the film is spent at the mansion and the grounds around the mansion. And if you think that was a lot, to give you as an introduction is because that's almost an hour of this film. Like that is the majority. Like there's so much time wasted on all of this to get them to this one giant set piece of this mansion in the grounds where they film all this. We killed off a couple characters. It was just like really drawn out and really over tedious. I understand we're trying to introduce a lot of new characters, but you're not introducing any characters that are likable humans. Riley is supposed to be the protagonist, but she's kind of a witchy drug addict that you don't really get to see a lot of like good intentions and a good heart, mind, or soul out of Riley. So when she arrives to the mansion, Riley finds a book. She figures out Voight is obsessed with the puzzle box. She knows about Cenobites, that kind of thing. And when she sees the hallucination, or in reality, it is actually Matt, he's skinless. So you have this sort of like this motivation that she finds of, if I do this, I can somehow get him back. And there's different explanations of the puzzle and the formation of the puzzle. And one of them is a Lazarus formation. So therefore, it would be resurrection, and basically the brother Matt could come back. Anyway, there are spontaneous scenes that they do things that don't that are not consistent. So it is a little, if you're like casually watching it and you look up and suddenly there's red lights, or you look up and there's suddenly blue lights, that's not even always tied to the Cenobites. It's just things that they do. I thought that was a little weird and awkward with how they handle some of that. Riley does ultimately try to explain the puzzle box to gay boyfriend. I don't even know. I didn't even write down his name. It comes up at some point. I did write it down. Anyway, it's not at this point. So, but everybody splits up. Scooby-Doo gang splits up. And at one point, Nora, the other girl, she's pushing buttons behind this bar. There's a secret passage. So we end up with like a secret passage thing. We have Nora being chased or not being chased and all this kind of stuff. And, you basically have someone peeking in on them, so we know it's Voight. Voight's not really dead. There's more to that story. That's a bit kind of what you're banking on. Is there's more of this little plot. So this is this rushed little middle where they get to the mansion and a whole lot of stuff happens, and you get to see Pinhead. Now Pinhead has been transformed, as you can see. I tried to use the photo because I want you to understand that this is probably one of the more divisive elements of the film for me, because I was really into Hellraiser because of Doug Bradley's portrayal of Pinhead. Pinhead is this sort of stoic, sort of angelic, celestial demon, the gatekeeper. He was called the priest in the original script, and that's what Barker really thought of him as, these demons, but he is the one that's in charge. And that's why I didn't care for the second movie as much, because it was like his power and everything. Even though he's the evil monster is the protagonist in some ways. That's why you're there to see the movie. And he was sort of, his power and everything was undermined. And in this, it's completely changed into this. Actually, all of the Cenobites, I think, are pretty effeminate in their body styles and all of that. So like in the original, we had a really cool female Cenobite, but here they've all been swapped out. We do have a chatterbox, but it's not the same. They're all very effeminate. You have one that's like a Weezer, like the throat's ripped open for smoking or something. You have these different elements. The Cenobites, the problem with the Cenobites, the first phase of Cenobites that I had a problem with was that when they're there and there's a confrontational scene, they've lost the claustrophobia that was created in the original Hellraiser. So usually when it was happening, when the Cenobites would present themselves, kind of to Frank, but ultimately later on to Kirsty in those original films, they were in something that felt very closed in with narrow hallways. It was like a maze. You were very disoriented, but you felt very trapped. Here, there's a lot of scenes where things are outside. They're being exposed, but there's like this whole wide open area. And even though they can kind of supernaturally move around, you lose that surreal fear of your own claustrophobia, right? And I didn't like the Nora versus the Cenobites when she finally gets her situation. It was meant to be super, super creepy, almost Exorcist, where they like bend her in half. Because it's also laced with Pinhead. The dialogue they give her, him, it doesn't matter. It's a trans actor, so I'm not quite sure what we're supposed to do with Pinhead anymore now. But it's literally a spot on Christian metaphor about, heaven is a joyful note, so it's going to be all positive. What's the fun in that? Isn't it better to hear screams? And I just didn't really like any of this element of it all. I thought it was just too on the nose. Like this is one of the things that was very much in those original films, but not like in your face exactly. So it kind of moves quickly into the final act where Voight is brought to light. Riley has got herself cut, and she's sort of like bargaining with the Cenobites in some ways, because she's like, well, if we bring these other two dead body, if you bring these other two, like Riley and the gay boyfriend, if Riley can bring gay boyfriend and Trevor, then she might be able to get Matt resurrected. That's kind of the general thing. And the puzzle's doing its thing. Like it's instead of it puzzling or moving back to its normal cube, it is changing into the Leviathan formation, which is that long cylindrical one, right? Almost looks like a giant like crystal or something. So all of the stuff's happening in the mansion. There's these metal gates that Voight had built to keep the Cenobites out, because we don't quite know why. I didn't catch why. I may have missed it. At one point, Riley's figured out that she can stab them with the blade when it pops out. It didn't, so she stabs one of the Cenobites. So therefore, Pinhead turns on the Cenobite and not the human. So that's kind of how this was all transpiring into this final act. And ultimately, Voight, the exposure comes out, and basically he attacks the gay boyfriend, Colin. That's his name. He's in my notes. See, I knew I could figure it out. I guess Colin. I wrote something else different earlier, but okay. All right, Colin. Anyway, he tries to escape. Anyway, it's interesting because Voight, when this is all sort of coming together into its moment, Voight thinks he's very arrogant, like the Doctor was in the second film. Like, I demand an audience. I, right? As though these Cenobites or this supernatural beast will listen to him. And he is basically living in a human / afterlife torture, where he has this device that's all through his middle and through his back, and it's constantly winding and twisting and pulling on nerves and all that. It's like this torture thing. So that's all happening. And there's spots where, Voight had begged for death and whatever. So anyway, when they basically decide, the Cenobites decide that they'll just take Voight and they'll transform him, right? Trevor dies on a mattress, so you know how mattresses go in the grand scheme of Hellraiser, but none of that actually happens in this film. Like, we don't get an after credit scene that I saw with the mattress. They torture and take Voight away. Just things happen very abruptly at the end of this film. There's a really kind of and the way they handle the torture of Voight is that, this peeling of the flesh back. It's all just very gross, and they do it in a way similar. And they've done it in other movies. I'm not going to try to say they don't, but they do it like across, again, more religious metaphors. It's very gratuitous and over the top. So anyway, so what are my takeaways? My takeaways are, obviously, is it woke? Well, it's woke in that we have a trans actress, we have the gay couple, that, Riley can do things the boys can't do. She knows how to just up and do certain things. It doesn't really matter. I was never turned off by any of those elements other than what I've already said about Pinhead, right? The biggest problem with the film for me is the writers are too busy trying to fool us, and they're not interested in the stuff happening to the characters. Like, the characters are just running around. We don't know what all the rules are. They change the rules. Like, suddenly at one point, I haven't rewatched these Hellraiser movies after the fact, so maybe there was a lot of changes to the rules. But the original, like, you open the box, you were facing the Cenobites. There wasn't this, you get to just choose someone else. Well, I open the box, I'm going to kill my friend. Like, this would have been like a great way to get a puzzle box to just murder people, to have the Cenobites show up. But this kind of stuff just kind of keeps happening, right? The rules just don't have any consistency, or they're not clearly defined, or we don't quite understand. The Cenobites didn't explain it to Riley in the audience in a way that we can understand, because there has to be too many efforts trying to make twists. You think someone's going to die and they don't, and Voight showing up and all these different things, right? I got to be honest, I really hate the idea of, you just choose who dies thing. Again, this makes Riley less appealing. Like, she's so selfishly wanting the brother back that she'd be willing to kill the gay boyfriend, but then she has a sudden turn of like, well, no, I won't do that because I can stab somebody with the pen. I can, I can kill a Cenobite. It's like, well, okay. Anyway, never explain why the gates work in the mansion. We never quite get some of the details really fleshed out. Very long-winded in the beginning. It's like the tempo of this is like a lot of slow, something fast, slow, fast, slow, fast. It's all chaos, over the top with the grossness. I feel like these are people who watched some movies, maybe had some notes given to them. They want to make it modern, so that's why they changed it to a trans actress and effeminate Cenobites. They tried to do the grossness with pulling people apart stuff. It's almost like it's like mediocre to poor fan fiction of a Hellraiser film, rather than someone who really is passionate about this universe, like Clive Barker, who originally created it. Like, it's lost so much between where it started and where it is now. And some of that I understand, right? It's been, 35 years, but don't think I would watch it again. I say that, but of course, there'll be another Hellraiser movie and I'll sit and watch through some of them again and give you guys my thoughts. But I didn't enjoy it as much as I hoped I would, but I didn't necessarily completely despise it either. But it's a very disposable, take it or leave it kind of thing. I actually was turned off more by Hellbound because of, basically being a direct sequel, because they try to claim it almost like it's a reboot, but it's not, because it literally is supposed to take place with Kirsty in the mental hospital. So it's like part 1, part 2. And that fall off was so much worse on my rewatch, where something like this is just almost like a completely new version of the similar stuff. I really wish they had Pinhead as sort of like maybe the old guard, and this is a new version of a Cenobite, or they made a different one, or that they made a comment that it was a daughter or an offspring of Pinhead. Like, it would, it wouldn't have been terrible that he like created someone in his image to take over for him, or something that would have made this a little more palatable. And like I said, I haven't rewatched every single film. Maybe there's more there I don't know. You guys in the chat, in the comments, will correct me, I'm sure. So, but that's my general thoughts. It's on Hulu. So if you don't have it, you end up with Hulu, or you know how to get it without that. There you go. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's not good. It's just sort of meh with some cool moments. You can see, and I don't think the CGI was too overly done. There wasn't anything I thought that really, really bothered me. It's more of the dumbness of certain elements that didn't work, rather than just horrible execution. Like when you started with crap, you're going to end with crap. Well, they didn't really make it worse with their execution. It's just not a very good product. So anyway, that's my general thoughts. You can please feel free to let me know what you guys think. Comment accordingly. Love. It's been interesting hearing some of the engagement about Hellraiser and the film and its legacy. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Thanks.